Okay, so let me see if I can define what intertextuality is. Now, the term intertextuality appeared roughly in the 1960s with the French thinker of Hungarian origin, Julia Kristeva. Now, what intertextuality means, very broadly speaking, it means that all texts contain traces of other text. That is to say, there is no text that does not draw on some ideas, concepts, and themes that were previously mentioned in other texts. In this sense, you could think of texts like a kind of a patchwork, like a kind of a carpet that is made up of several colors, textiles, and fibers. Now, James Porter, in his influential article Intertextuality and the Discourse Community, has talked about two forms of intertextuality. The first form he labels as Itrebility, and this refers to the idea that texts refer to other texts either via influence, citation, plagiarism, or a repetition of standard plots, themes, or narrative structures. The second form of intertextuality, which is a little bit more complicated, is called presupposition. And this refers to the assumptions a text makes about its reader or its context. These assumptions are not explicit in the text itself. Now, this is a little bit too theoretical, so let me give you an example of how I mean by presupposition. Now, if you read a piece of news in a newspaper, and there is, for example, an explosion that took place somewhere, the reporter or the journalist might be writing something like, an explosion happened in Karachi, killing 70 people, 20 of whom were women. Now, you might ask yourself the question, why is the reporter stating that 20 of the victims are women? Well, one answer to this is because the reporter or the journalist is presupposing, is making an assumption that if an explosion happened and there are 20 women victims of this explosion, this makes the whole thing even more tragic because the assumption is women are not supposed to be killed in battlefields or in explosion on the street. They are just victims. Of course, this sounds a little bit now sexist, but I'm not going to go into this direction today because the focus today is just intertextuality. Now, to understand really deeply what intertextuality means, one has to go back to a few concepts developed by a formidable Russian thinker, and his name is Mikhail Bakhtin. One of the central concepts that Mikhail Bakhtin deals with is dialogicity. For Bakhtin, all language is dialogic. Even simple sentences and simple words are dialogic. Now, let me read out for you what Alan Graham, in his very important book on intertextuality, says about dialogicity. For Alan, the dialogic is the idea that all utterances respond to previous utterances and are always addressed to other potential speakers rather than occurring in isolation. Now, this is again too theoretical. Let me give you a simple example of this. Now, if you try to imagine me sitting here in front of my beloved, and I just say this very simple sentence, I really love you. Now, you might ask again the question why I'm emphasizing really love you, not just I love you. Well, one answer to this may be because I'm thinking about this sentence, I really love you or I love you, as a cliche word. I mean, thousands of people have said the same thing. And so when I'm using it, I'm saying, I know that there might be millions of people who are saying the same thing, but I really mean it. So you see, even in this very simple sentence, there's a kind of dialogicity that is going on between me and all the other people and all the social community. Now, it's important now to trace the shift that took place from Bakhtin to Krestiva, because Bakhtin focused actually on ordinary speech on a daily basis, whereas Krestiva focused more on the text in general and the literary text in particular. Again, I will refer to Alan's book and read for you out what Krestiva means by intertextuality. So for Krestiva, a text is a permutation or a transformation of other texts, and intertextuality in the space of a given text in which several utterances taken from other texts intersect and neutralize one another. So this is one way to say that texts speak of other texts and they intersect and talk to one another. Of course, if we say that all texts are intertext, all texts are somehow intertextual, then we have to raise the question of originality. Then what does it mean really to be an original writer? And where does plagiarism fit in all of this? I hope this was not too complicated. Thank you.